Going on, guys? Welcome back to the LALAL.AI Podcast, which this is cool because as some as you guys know who've been tuning in every week, it's just been a YouTube show and we've been working on putting it on all platforms now, so that's really exciting. But today we're joined by a really cool guest, Chris Watson, who, man, I want to thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to hear what you do and your story. I've seen some of the stuff you do on social media, and I'm definitely really inspired by some stuff I saw. So I'm excited to kind of pick your brain on everything you're doing from touring to concerts to really kind of building a personal brand, with social media. And yeah, dude, thank you so much for joining us here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I always like at this point to kind of pass it off to the guest and let us know, who is Chris Watson? Like, what's your story? How did you get
Yep.
involved with music and what led you up to this point, I'd say currently in your career?
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in Chelmsford in Essex, which is just northeast of London, if you don't know where that is.
Okay.
And my parents, both musicians, professional musicians. So music is kind of the family business, as it were, I guess.
Okay.
So it
I
was kind
like
of, it's kind of
that.
like in the blood, right? So I
Yeah.
was kind of always going to do music in some form, and I did learn. Quote unquote proper instruments when I was younger, sort of guitar, and I learned the piano and that sort of thing until I
Okay.
was kind of early teens. Um, and then everything changed for me as I was growing up when I discovered electronic music,
Yeah.
which obviously the whole world of electronic dance music, DJing, and it kind of started where my mum, she used to drive me to school every morning. This was when I was probably 12, 13 years old. And she had a CD that she used to play every morning in the car, which was Ibiza classics, dance music classics, house music,
Okay.
trance music. And she'd play it every morning. And you know, she used to dance in the car, I used to dance in the car, and it was like such a strong memory for me. And that moment is when I just fell in love with everything electronic dance music and that whole world. And that CD that my mum used to play in the car, it totally changed my life. And so from there, as I went on through school, I discovered music production. So started realizing that as much as I loved playing instruments, that I could, basically make an entire record.
Yeah, every
Like,
instrument, right?
you can make a whole finished track.
Yeah.
From obviously those days, it wasn't quite, laptop where it was, but obviously I had a PC. Remember like the massive tower PCs that were
Yeah,
huge, like
that's what
one
I
of those. Yeah,
had. I remember using
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
the
yeah.
family computer that had probably like
That's
one
the
gig
one.
of 1 gig of RAM on this computer.
That
And
yeah,
I'm
man, yeah,
like
man. That
trying to like download FL Studio on the family computer that can like barely handle solitaire.
Yeah, 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 man. Exactly that. Exactly that. Same with me. Family computer that, eventually, I got on and I had started making music, obviously electronically, and I realized I could recreate or at that time, it obviously they sounded nothing like those records because I was rubbish at that point.
Yeah.
But like obviously, I realized I could potentially make records that sounded just like those records on my mum's CD that she played in the car, and I was like, wow, this is it's amazing. I sort of was instantly hooked from that point, and then at the same time, so this was around probably 2010, 11, 12, probably around that time period.
Yeah.
And obviously, what really exploded at the same time, I mean, it was already huge, but obviously, that was still huge at that point was obviously was the culture of electronic dance music. So DJs like Avicii and Swedish House Mafia,
Yeah, definitely.
um, and also the guys that came before from the 90s, so Chicane and Pete Tong, obviously records like Robert Miles' Children,
Yeah.
ATB, 9 p.m. Telecom, all these big records. Like, obviously, the list can go on, but all that music was so huge. And I realized that all these guys, as well as making music, like I was now doing on a computer, obviously, what they did as well was DJ. They were all DJs as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So I instantly got hooked on DJing and realized that the two together, you could potentially do some, really exciting stuff. You make
Interesting.
music and then you go and play it, as a DJ.
Interesting.
So yeah, then basically that was sort of then I got to about 16 years old and I got my first DJ gig in a nightclub. Well, it was a bar. It was like this late night bar.
Yeah.
I was 16 years old, and then that's how I entered the DJing world. I was still producing music as well, and then from there, since that point, that's all I've done ever since I was 16 was
Wow.
simply DJ and then also produce music as well for between now and then. I mean, I've skipped over quite a bit already, but I also producing a lot, working with artists, like as a producer, not as an artist myself, just like
Yeah.
working with
Kind of in the background.
singers,
Yeah.
songwriters, also making music for like other DJs. Lots of dance music, house music, some trance music, that sort of thing, in the
Okay.
background. As well as I said, I've been a DJ now for 11 years. I've done it, every week.
Wow.
It's all I've done. My entire life consumed by it.
That's awesome.
As I think a lot of people in music say, once you get into it, that's it. It's
It's just
just
it's
everything.
every day,
It
right?
becomes everything.
I
Yeah,
love that.
100%.
I'm not too
Uh,
familiar with kind of like the DJ scene. Um, but I
yeah,
mean
yeah,
for me, like I'm a music producer. Like I do, all
yeah.
the background stuff, right?
Hmm.
Do you think that like I mean when you're a DJ, like I know that like you're probably playing like the hits, right, of that time, the songs everyone knows.
Hmm.
Does that also give you an opportunity to mix in your own songs and play them at the same time?
For sure, 100% that, and it's a great way of when you do play your own songs that you can see really with no filter whether people like it or not, because
Okay, yeah.
there's nothing more exposing of being in a nightclub and you play or any environment where you're DJing to a crowd and you play your record to that crowd. And if they don't like it, like they'll let you
You
know,
can tell
like
on the spot.
you'll tell straight away that,
That's kind of
oh, I need to tweak
crazy.
that. And obviously from a more of a music production point of view, it's a great way to really check mixes and check kind of, mastering and that sort
Yeah.
of thing, because you can really see if certain elements are cutting through on a certain sound system because you're playing it in the middle of obviously already finished records. So you can
Yeah.
really understand how it kind of all lines up with kind of like the overall kind of palette or of your set, right? And what's
Yeah.
happening right now in dance music culture. You can kind of slot your record in real time and watch a crowd react to it. So DJing is, I find the two. They do go hand in hand. They're very they're quite different as disciplines, but
Yeah.
when together, they are there is actually a lot of they do marry up quite nicely and that's
Yeah.
a reason why
Well, I think it's cool
um,
too because like, I know for me like making beats in my room and then, selling them online or working with artists all like, virtually, digitally stuff. Sometimes I don't really see the end product of,
mm,
where the song goes, right? And I think it's
mhm,
so cool that like you said, you're literally seeing in real time when you go from Avicii to your song, like how
mhm.
people are reacting, right? You just like you already have people hooked and literally where it should end up. So I think that's really cool that just like yeah, like you said, it gives you the best feedback, I guess. The most real time and accurate feedback, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's instant feedback, and you can see, especially when you play records from different eras. Say I played a record from, let's say, the 90s, right? Like a dance record from the 90s, and then but then I played one from the sort of the mid 2000s, and then you play one from kind of like the 2010s. Obviously, as a DJ, because you get to play those records over the course of a night, you get to see how the music has kind of evolved. And you can
Okay,
hear,
yeah.
you can kind of hear that like the real differences in how sounds have
Yeah.
developed and progressed, and the changes, not only technically in terms of music production, because obviously they come along so fast, over a 10-year period,
Yeah.
but also in terms of just understanding, what from those records makes the crowd move, and then you can incorporate that into your own record. You can go back the next day and think, wow, like when I played this and this and this, and then I played my record, oh, like that moment there when I went
Yeah.
to the breakdown, but I didn't keep the drums going. We needed to have something there to keep the energy up. Oh, I'll do that right now. It's a real time thing before you then release it, as opposed
Yeah.
to, I think if you're obviously, this, you don't have to DJ, but I mean, if you weren't DJing, you'd have to wait to finish that record. You get the
Exactly.
best
Yeah.
feedback you can, and then it would go up, and then you'd give it 6 months, and then you'd look at the numbers and see how it's translating. DJing is kind of
Yeah.
a way of
Instead,
you can
you're
really,
already doing that. Yeah. That's really
yeah, it's
interesting.
some. Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting perspective. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes it can be quite brutal if you
Yeah.
if the crowd doesn't like your music. But you
Just
know
you have to quickly
that's part
change
of it.
back to a different
Yes,
song.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So so yeah, I've been doing that. Not only the records, my own records, but records I've been working on for other artists. Again, it's DJing is a great way of trialing records, not just mine but other people's and that sort of thing. It's a whole thing. Been doing that, and then that probably takes us up to a couple of years before now, and then in the last, I think around 2 years, I sort of decided to put my thing on social media because
Yeah, that's what I
before,
wanted to ask because you've had a couple
yeah,
posts I saw on Instagram getting the millions of plays, which is insane, and just some
yeah.
of that viral content. It's really just entertaining to watch too. Like I definitely want to hear
Thanks,
like
man.
how you got started with that and kind of figured all this stuff out for yourself.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Basically, it got to a point with my DJing and also my music as well, where I'd felt maybe I'd hit a little bit of a ceiling.
Yeah,
I've been DJing for so long, and I've done to a certain size and level of nightclub and festival, whatever, and I love it. But I
yeah,
realized that, and at the same time, I was really enjoying that, and I was also still really enjoying making music because the one thing I
yeah,
love, despite everything, I'm sure you're the same. Is like I do totally love music. Like
yeah, of
I
course.
would do it. I'm never going to not do it, and
Yeah,
so I was still enjoying what I was doing and enjoying making music because it's what I love and working with music. So, but I realized there was kind of a bit of a ceiling because I felt like I wanted to maybe put my thing out there instead of perhaps being behind the scenes. I wanted
yeah,
to kind of just try and put my thing, what the music that I like, that I truly really love, and my style out there and just kind of see what happens. So I thought obviously the obvious way to do that is obviously social media because social media is such an important part of many artists and DJs and producers make up, whether you're kind of public facing or behind the scenes. Obviously, you're nodding. I'm sure you agree. It's such an important part of how this whole world, right? In terms of
yeah,
pushing yourself out there. Obviously,
yeah,
it's more important to some than others, depending on what they're doing. But it's such an important thing. So I thought, right, well, let's just give it a go. I was like, let's just go for it. Let's just package myself up in get myself together and just put it all on social media. And I started that around 2 years ago. Not really expecting anything to come of it at all. Purely just doing it because I love doing it. I was like, let's just put the music I really truly love out there, my thing, and then if nothing happens, it's fine because I was still DJing. I was still making, producing music, and it was fine. I didn't need it to really take off. I just sort of went for it, and
yeah.
then yeah, as you've mentioned, there was a few videos that just went totally mental. Like it's
That's
just
amazing.
totally crazy. Um, I remember I looked at my phone and I couldn't even like open like the Instagram and TikTok
Oh, you just
apps.
all the notifications.
I couldn't even open them. They just froze like when I opened the app, and I remember that. And I remember watching that, like I'm unable to open the app because of what was happening. I was like, okay, this is crazy now. This is now happening, and obviously it kind of. Then a few weeks later, there was another one that just went totally
Yeah,
crazy, and then and then another one,
I think that's
and
awesome.
yeah,
Um,
it kind of just went suddenly just went crazy,
just
which I guess is the
crazy.
power of it's just the power of the internet,
You
right? That's
just
the power of
never
social
know,
media.
right?
You never know. You never
Yeah.
know.
I think one
Um,
thing that's cool though that I saw, it's like, um, you know, I'm sure those posts like that, got into millions and went kind of viral like that definitely helped like your
mm,
followers and people find your music, I guess. But I
mhm,
also noticed like, for me, like I have kind of a background in like digital marketing and I love
mhm,
the music side of things, but I also love the way of like seeing, the social media stuff and how people are doing stuff. And I saw a couple
mm,
like cool things that I think that you do that I think maybe a lot of people could take, inspiration or advice from. And I
mhm,
saw that you do these things that I guess kind of help you like build a community, I guess, where I saw you had a few posts and you were like, comment the word song and I'll send you a song. Or I think you had a story post where it's like, reply with this, and I'll send you a snippet of a song. And also, I
Hmm.
saw you have a Patreon like page too. So I guess it's
Hmm.
like building a community, but I guess like, is there any kind of like advice or wisdom or strategies, technique that you've learned from this? Because I think yeah, it's one thing, it's an amazing, a huge thing to get a post that goes viral and get millions of followers. But then how do you turn that into fans and people who are kind of coming back and following you and listening to your music?
Yeah. Um, well, I think I can probably give I can probably give two bits of advice here. Maybe one more philosophical and one a bit more
Okay.
practical. So
Yeah.
I think the first one I'd say definitely that I've experienced is um, as I've just said and you've just said as well, that sometimes the post will just a post or something you do will just go crazy and you can't control it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, to get to that point, you have to put up and do so much work. You have to put so many
Yes.
videos
Yeah.
up, so much music up, and you're not going to see any money from it. You're not going to see
Yeah.
anything, any movement on it whatsoever. Um, and obviously, I really, really, I really, really love the music. And that's the only reason I keep doing it, and I did do it for quite some time without seeing any movement
Yeah.
on numbers or progress whatsoever because I just love it. I'm happy to do it
Yeah.
and not get anything from it, right? So I think for anyone that is looking at the social media thing and thinking they can perhaps benefit from it, I think the most important thing is it is a bit cliche. I know lots of people say this, but you really have to love it fundamentally. So when things aren't moving forward, you're still happy
Yeah.
and you're still happy
You're still
to
wanting to
to
do it,
keep to
right?
keep doing it
Yeah.
because you love it and you love you love working with the music, you love everything about it, right? So I think that's one thing I found because it's amazing when a video goes super viral, which is great. It's this really exciting feeling, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
when it doesn't, which is most of the time, there's not
Yeah.
always one that's going crazy. You have to keep at it and still enjoy doing it. So
Yeah.
I'd say that definitely first of all, that's like the foundation. I feel like everyone needs to get right first. Love it first.
Definitely.
And then, yeah, I suppose from a more practical point of view, obviously you mentioned digital marketing. I've kind of, as I started and as I said, a few videos went crazy. I kind of, the whole digital side, I really kind of started to get into it because it was kind of in front of me. It was happening. I was like, okay, so how has that happened? Like, how has this
Yeah.
video gone so big? Um, so from a practical point of view, like content is so important. Like what you're doing is essential. Like it has to work and people have to enjoy it. That's the fundamental fact of it. But there are things like what you said. There's automation tools where you can people can comment a word on a post or your story, and they can obviously get something in return. So I often give people like my playlists that I've made. I spend quite a bit of time making playlists of dance music and house music and trance music from certain eras, and then I send that to them, and they can add it to their Spotify, and then it's basically a way of
Mhm.
like having that connection, as you say, community. Like I'm actually giving them something that they can then, once they've finished viewing the post, they can,
They can
go
walk
to the
away with
gym,
something.
they
Yeah.
can walk away with something. They've got it now on their Spotify. So when they go to the gym or when they go on a walk or when they go on holiday or when they on the way to work, like they can just play the Spotify playlist and they're not
Yeah.
watching the video, right? And so there's a bit of a community building there. So I try and do that as much as possible because that's so important. Because that, as you asked, how you translate millions of views to fans, that's how you do it. You have to form a connection with them. You have to give them something. You have to, you know, communicate with them, not just take their view and be like,
And
fantastic, that's
nothing
thank you.
else, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You have to kind of
That's really
like
smart.
it has to be reciprocal. They have to,
Hmm.
and I love it. I mean, I really love my favorite thing about it, honestly, is not necessarily the massive views. I mean, again, that they're super exciting, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but the massive views, I love like the comments and the little messages of
Engagement,
people saying
right?
the
Yeah.
engagement, right? But just from people saying, oh, I loved you brought back so many memories for me, for example. If I'm doing a video and I'm talking about, dance records from, the 2010s, it's like, oh, thank you so much for bringing back the memories to me. It's like, it's
Hmm.
so nice. You know what I mean? It's a nice thing to have someone message you that or comment that. Um, and I suppose, yeah, back to practical terms, that's kind of like, I suppose, community building of like-minded people through the social media and other things like that. So, yeah, hope that answers your question. That is what
Yeah.
you asked
No,
about
I think that that's
yeah,
really cool. I think like I think like, one thing that I learned kind of early on too, it's that like there's going to be people who view your content and some people are just going to, watch it and swipe away and not think anything. Then there's going to be
Mhm.
people who want more of it. And
Mhm.
sometimes like I've seen even, with other people's Instagram where it's like, oh, they had, one really cool post and then they haven't posted again in like 2 years. And it's like, or they don't have
Mhm.
anything to follow it up with, right? Like there's always going to be people who, if you give them more stuff, they're going to take more stuff. And maybe that's, more views or more comments or more interactions, right? But I think
Mhm.
it's really cool that like you have that set up where it's like even stuff just like you said, like a playlist where someone can get that in return. They can save it, they can drive around, go to the gym with it. They enjoy it. And then all of a sudden it's like you said, like that singular view that they had all of a sudden becomes this connection where it's
Mhm.
they were like, oh, I saw this guy's post and all of a sudden he sent me his playlist and all of a sudden I know so much more about him and I hear his songs and all of a sudden they're brought into this whole ecosystem, which I think is really, really even me, who's someone who's been doing this for a long time, like even I'm like, "Dude, that's so smart." And I want to set this up for myself like now. But I'm curious, like, I mean, I know that you've been doing this for so long. You have all these kind of channels and systems in place. What would you recommend for any new either DJ or musician just getting started, whether it be social media stuff, production stuff? What couple of like pieces of advice or tips would you give to somebody who's just starting, all this stuff out?
As in starting in music, like, or
Yeah, I
with
think like
social
let's
media, were you
say,
saying?
for example, I'm a producer who's making some electronic music. I've never posted anything online before. I've downloaded Ableton or whatever, and I think I'm pretty good. What would you
Mhm.
then recommend that I would do in this situation?
Um, well, I mean, as I said, I think the fundamental foundation, as I said before, is to love it. You have to
Yeah.
really be passionate about it and keep that buzz alive of
Yes.
that thing that made you get into it.
Yeah.
Um, and then once you have that foundation set, I would try and I would say from my experience, I would try and always remember that um, in a lot of ways, music is a community.
Hmm.
So once you start making music, let's say, as you said, on Ableton or something like that, Logic, try and not be too. Make sure you have days and times when you're locked in the studio and you're working on music and you're getting
Yeah.
creative. I think that's super important. But
Yeah.
once that's done, try not to isolate yourself. Try to be remember that you're part of a scene, of a
Yeah.
community, and that could be electronic dance music. It could be house music. It could be rap music. It could be a community of producers for pop artists. It could
Yeah.
be you're in a community of producers who make advertisement music for advertisements. You know what I mean? Like there's so
Yeah.
many different, but every one of those I just said is a community, and just make sure that why this will help someone, I think, who has just started and they've just opened Ableton, they've just opened Logic, is that they need to listen to other records and music in their community, in their world, and be inspired, because it's a system of just good times, of just that sounds really
Yeah.
bad,
And
but
and you keep
it's just
learning, right?
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a that's a bad way of putting it. It's more like it's just an ecosystem of just positivity, right? Because you realize that you want to contribute. Let's say again, obviously, I'll just there's so many communities you could argue in scenes, but let's say
Yeah.
electronic dance music, which is what I've been involved in. You listen to the records that are big at the time, and be inspired and think, I can do something like that. And then
Exactly.
it's almost
Yeah.
like you're adding your voice to the conversation, and by you doing that, people will be more likely to like your music, because
Hmm.
you've been inspired by something that's clearly really successful and really popular and people love it, and then you're putting your own spin on that, and people are like, wow, this guy's awesome. And
Yeah.
then you know what I mean, and then
I think
that's how you
that's
can
so true.
move
Yeah.
things forward. So you got to think of music as almost like this ongoing conversation that's constantly going, and people are constantly innovating and adding something to it and pushing the envelope further, and you want to be the one that's pushing the envelope, but you can only do that if you're listening to your
If you're
scene and your
open to it.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'd
like
say
that.
that.
Like I know for me, I think that's a really good point. It reminds me like, when I was even now, like, making music, like I was bouncing back and forth between so many different genres. I'd be making hip hop and then EDM and pop, and I was taking
Hmm.
inspiration from like so many like, different producers and genres where I feel like now it's like this kind of sound that I've created for myself. Like, I think it's definitely like a blend of myself, but it's also it takes bits and pieces from everything, right? Like even when I'm working on
Hmm.
a rap beat or a hip hop song, it's like some of the production elements that I'm using are ones that I've learned from studying Avicii, studying like Skrillex
There
and
we go.
stuff like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
that, like I think I like to think like for me that's always done a few different things. I think one, it's like helps my sound appeal to a wider audience where it's like somebody who usually listens to like hip hop, all of a sudden will be like, okay, this is, kind of cool. It's kind of different. Or if people are listening to different genres, it kind of works with that. And this like same thing like you said, it keeps me inspired. It keeps me motivated. It's, I'll hear something from like a ambient track and I'll be like, oh, that's so cool. I want to like, do that with mine, right? It's something
Hmm.
that really keeps me keeps me, inspired, I think is the word I'm
Exactly
looking
that.
for, right? And energized and
Ex-
motivated, right? I think that's a
Exactly
really
that.
good point.
Hmm.
Around this time in our conversations with our guests here, I always kind of like to pivot things a little bit and talk about, of course, the biggest buzzword that's been going on this year,
It's
AI
everywhere.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
right? It's something that I feel like it's just, yeah, been the biggest buzzword for the past year. Everyone's talking about it, always new stories. I've been all over the map with my thoughts about it, but I'm curious
Mm.
your thoughts. No right answers here. Are you
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it? Are you against it? What's your current opinion on AI in music?
Well, I would say I love it. I mean, I love tech fundamentally. I love
Hmm.
music tech, and hardware, software, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And um, AI is, I think, I mean, this is why everybody's talking about it. It's possibly one of the most sort of pivotal moments, not just in music, but I just think in society. I mean, it's
Yeah.
such a huge,
Everywhere. Yeah.
shift that is happening now. Um, and I mean, I really, I know there's lots of people that agree with this. I really think it's, you've got these moments. It's like, really, it's like,
This is, should I pack up everything?
it's just, it's like, you've got, the invention of like, electricity, and then
Yes.
you've got
Yeah.
the invention of the internet, which the internet changed everything,
Yeah.
and then I don't know, like I'm trying to think of examples that AI is that big, I really think
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
that huge, and it's going to change the way lots of industries operate and how people operate in that way, um, in that scale, in that amount,
Yeah.
it is the next. The last big one, I think, was the internet when that obviously,
Mm.
when the internet was invented, and now the AI it's that happening
It's the
again. It's
next
that
biggest
size.
revolution, right?
Exactly that. That's what I'm trying to say. It really is the next big revolution. So I think I love it, and I think it's exciting. I do think it can be quite a complicated issue
Hmm.
for musicians, and creative people. I think partly because it's new. I think because it's such a new thing and something that is totally, um, revolutionary. It is going to take some getting used to. I think by
Yeah.
lots of creatives and musicians, and I do think there's definitely of if lots of producers, musicians, artists can get used to it and understand it and understand the benefits of it, I think there'd be lots of people that are more excited about it
Okay.
if they could really, because it's new, right? I think it's such a new thing. I mean, um, the concept of separating stems out, from your music, if you showed that to someone 10 years ago, I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah, I
totally
tried to do that
mind-blowing.
10 years ago and it's
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I almost
there were
got
ways
a
of doing it. Yeah,
computer
yeah.
virus. And it would take so long to do and it was so complicated and then
It-
yeah, like it wouldn't even work.
yeah, totally. Yeah, and I remember there were ways of like, this was, yeah, probably about 10 years, yeah, about 10 years ago, you could like get like a vocal in Logic, and then you could like reverse the phase or something
Yeah, and
with
you had
the
to
instrumental,
phase
and
it
then
and
you can
line
just
it
kind of
out, and
like yeah.
it like
And
wouldn't
it
even
wasn't
work.
no, it wouldn't work. It always sounded pretty bad. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't, it was never usable. But obviously, with some of the not just the stem separation AI technologies now in music, but some of the other technologies in terms of like music generation, I'm sure you've seen these
Yeah.
platforms that can literally generate entire records. Like if when you show that, I think to someone who's a musician, like and a creative person, especially if they've been a musician for 20, 30 years, like I am understandably so, it could be quite alarming, right? Because they're
Yeah.
seeing like this record being made. But I do also think that um the way to look at it is actually look at the possibilities of what you
Mm.
can do with it. It could really they're thinking of it might kind of take away from what they're doing, but if anything, if you can use it to add to what you're doing,
I like
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
imagine if you're, let's say, a guitarist, and you have a really great idea of a melody that you want to record. Well, why not record that melody and have AI help to generate an entire backing track for you? it,
Yeah.
it may not be perfect. I think some of these platforms, I think they're not quite there yet in terms of like the music generation quality, but
Yeah.
they're close, and they'll get there. They're going to get
Yeah.
there
And they give you the
100%.
idea too, right? Like that's sometimes
Yeah.
for me where it's like I feel like, when I'm starting a beat, like I always start like with like the chord progressions. And for me as a producer, like that's even as a listener, like that's something that never really like sticks out. Like I never really get a chord progression stuck in my head. So it's like when
Mm,
I'm working on a beat sometimes I feel like, I need, four chords. And sometimes I'll look through like MIDI packs or samples or loops or whatever just to find that. And as soon as I
hmm
find that, then it's like, okay, now I have the ideas for the stuff that I have fun adding, like melodies and drums and vocal chops, stuff like that, right? So it's like I feel like, if I can use AI to come up with like just that initial idea, and it's like, okay, that just, solves that problem for me, and then I can add everything else. Like that's how I
hmm
like using it, right?
Yeah, sure. And I think it really is a tool. It's this
Yeah.
insanely powerful tool that it can offer um, creatives and musicians, and it's just a total game. I mean, as I've said, it's as big as
Yeah.
the internet. Basically, it's a total game changer, and um, I think musicians need to be excited about it. That's the correct way to look at it. I think they need to
I
be,
like
be
that.
excited and look at the possibilities that it could bring to bringing your creative ideas to life. That's what
Yeah.
it really it should. That's what I think. That's how I look at it, and that's how I think people
I
should
like
look at it,
that.
and just accept the fact that yes, it's a massive revolution, but be excited by it because
I
it's
like
just
that.
it's brilliant. Um,
Look at all the
and
possibilities, right?
exactly. And the last thing I say on here would be, I remember obviously again, I'll speak about the DJing world just because obviously I know it so well. I remember when there was that transition from vinyls to CDs, and then
Okay, yeah.
CDs to like
To
not
digital
CDs.
stuff, yeah.
It would all be on the music. You turn up to do a DJ set, and the music's all on your USB stick, which is what the
Yeah.
case is now. And people, at the time when that, especially that transition away from vinyl, playing music on vinyl, people thought it was like the end of the world. It was like this is
Yeah,
terrible.
they
Like
did, yeah.
the art's being ruined. This is like the death of music. Like this is terrible.
Yeah.
But there's still millions and millions of people that enjoy
It's
music
just a
via
shift, right? And that's
streaming
that's what we're
and
seeing right
and
now, just a shift.
yeah, exactly. And it's exactly the same as that. It's a new technology that is new, but
Hmm.
one that we'll look back on and think, wow, like this could really change the game for the better. That's what I think. But yeah,
No, I like that. I mean, yeah, like you said, just look at the positives, look at the possibilities, and yeah, I mean, it's like every generation or every couple of years, I think that there's something that comes out where people are like, everyone goes into like doomsday mode, where they're like, oh no,
exactly
this is
that. Yeah,
the
yeah.
end, this is so against it, and then like you think back, it's like, even I think back to like when I was, starting being a producer and, downloading FL Studio on the family computer and then getting into
Hmm.
YouTube and Instagram and using that to kind of like, sell my beats online. Like that wouldn't have been a possibility if this was, 20 years sooner. If I was doing this in the 90s or 80s, I wouldn't
Hmm.
have all the opportunities that I've had today, right? Even with like social media stuff too, right? Um,
Hmm.
so it's just
Exactly that.
a
That's exactly what I'm
change,
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah,
I think that's
exactly that.
I think that's a really inspiring way of looking at it, right? And yeah, just
100%.
it's easy to definitely get caught up in all like the panic of it, but even like kind of like what you were saying about like the whole like um production stuff, like being open to new ideas and genres and kind of researching stuff. I think that's one thing that's really important to note.
Hmm.
I'm curious, like, are there any AI tools that you're using in this moment that you've really liked?
To be honest, it's actually difficult to name some because I really try and keep my finger on the pulse with all of them. So in
Yeah,
terms of all the
yeah,
different offerings, in terms of on the market, because I love, for me, I'm someone who I really like to always have like the latest tech, the
yeah,
latest thing. I always want to be
yeah,
like on the if I can. I mean, obviously, like life is busy sometimes, but I try and
yeah.
be on as much as I can on the cutting edge, effectively, of what's happening. I really try to. Um, and yeah, so I've used over the last few years, it's really exploded. I've used several different tools, so many tools, both in terms of everything from isolating vocals to generating entire tracks. I've tried all of those,
Yeah,
seeing how I can integrate them into my workflow. I'm trying to think of there's just all the different
just
ones,
all of
even the
them,
ones.
right? I
Yeah, I
like
try
that.
my best, and I'm always kind of looking to see, trying to see who's kind of pushing again, who's pushing things forward the most, and I always
I
give it a
like
go.
that.
Whenever there's a new one on the market, I do try it and see if I can use it. So yeah, I try and
Just all
keep
of
my eye
them.
on all of
I
them
like
really,
it.
if I can. Yeah, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah.
Um,
No,
sorry,
I
go
think
on.
that's good. No, I was just gonna say that this has been a really great conversation here. I mean, I appreciate you again for joining us and sharing all this wisdom. I'm really inspired, even someone who's been, producing music for over a decade now.
Great man,
But
thank
yeah,
you.
I just want to, ask just one final question of if
Sure.
anyone wants to learn more about you and see what you do, where's the best place for people to do that? We'll definitely link anything in the description here, but which platforms are best for people to find more about you?
Sure. Well, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, they're good to, have a look at my social media that we've been talking about and what I
Yeah,
do, and also check out some of my music as well on Spotify. So they're good. But yeah, I'm on all of them. So yeah, give me a search and
for sure. Yeah.
have a look. But yeah, that's the best way to find me. Those three are pretty good.
Awesome. And like I said, we'll
Mm.
link all that stuff in the description here. But Chris, I just want to say thank you again for joining us on this episode.
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.